Welcome back to Mind Pump TV. I'm your host, your favorite host, Sal DiStefano. Now today, I'm going to take you through an ab exercise, but really it's not really a hard ab workout. This exercise is best to get your abs working independently from your hip flexors. Now hip flexor dominance, or a lot of people will say overactive hip flexors, is basically anytime you go to do a core exercise, your hip flexors are doing all the work, or your hip flexors are just tense all the time because you have a weak core. So this movement helps correct that problem. Now, that problem is an issue for a lot of people, and it causes a lot of things like back pain or poor development in the midsection. So the movement you're going to learn in today's video is fantastic for alleviating back pain and getting you to connect to your ab muscles, so then when you do the other exercises for your abs, the really effective muscle building ones, your abs develop much faster. So let's do it. All right, in order to do this movement, you're probably going to want to be on the floor, and you're going to want to have something a little elevated like this bench. So you can do this with a chair, or you can even do this with your couch. But I prefer to use a bench. It's much more stable. So the starting position is I'm going to lay my back on the floor, and I'm going to put my heels up on the bench. Now the reason why I'm putting my heels on the bench is, I want to teach you how to get your hip flexors out of the movement. Every time we try to do a crunch or sit up, especially for people who sit down a lot at work, their hip flexors are constantly shortened, and the hip flexors are the first things that want to fire anytime you try and do this kind of forward bend movement. So we're going to take advantage of a phenomenon known as reciprocal inhibition. I like saying big words like that, makes me sound smart. But really what that means is when I flex one muscle, the muscle on the opposite side tends to relax. The hip flexors are here at the front of the body, so what's on the opposite side of my body? My glutes. So in order to deactivate or lessen the activation of the hip flexors, I want to activate my glutes. So the first thing you do with this exercise, you want to have your heels up on something elevated. You want to push down into whatever it is you have your heels on, in this case it's a bench, and you want to squeeze your glutes, squeeze your butt muscles. This is the beginning of the exercise. So you want to hover your back off the floor just a little bit. You notice here it's probably like a couple inches off the floor. I'm squeezing my glutes. Now when you do that, the hip flexors are going to automatically be relaxed. Here's another thing I want you to pay attention to. With your upper thighs, I want you to imagine you're pulling them in a little bit. Now I don't want you to pinch your knees together, but I want you to create a little bit of inward tension to prevent this from happening right here. So I want everything straight, hips up, squeeze the glutes. Now with my glutes squeezed, and I'm going to maintain them being squeezed, now I want to do a crunch, and I want you to reach forward to make it a little easier on yourself, but now you come up and squeeze. Now at first it's going to feel weird because you're trying to squeeze your glutes while you're doing a crunch, and you're going to find that it's going to be kind of jerky. That's because you probably have some hip flexor dominance going on. So squeeze the glutes, keep them squeezed, keep your hips off the floor, reach forward, then you come up and squeeze the midsection. Come up as high as you can while maintaining the hips off the floor and the glutes being squeezed. Then come back down. Now it's a slow correctional exercise, so the tempo is going to look like this. Hips up, squeeze the glutes. I want you to come up, squeeze, hold for about 2 seconds, and come back down. And it should take you about 2 seconds to come up and 2 seconds to come down with a 2-second squeeze. So it's going to go 1001, 1002, hold, 1001, 1002. Again, squeeze the glutes, come up 2 seconds, hold, come down 2 seconds. Now, a lot of times people ask me, how should I breathe when I do this exercise? Breathe naturally. Now, if that's not sufficient for you, then you can try breathing out on the way up and breathing in on the way down. And that's pretty much it. All right, so when you're doing this exercise, you'll know you're doing it right when you feel your abs working and getting tired, and you're going to feel your glutes getting a little tired. You should feel your glutes getting tired and maybe burn a little bit. And that's because you're keeping your hips up off the floor and you're squeezing them the entire time. Now, one of the big mistakes I see people doing is they'll raise their hips off the floor, squeeze their glutes, but then when they go to do the crunch, the glutes go back down, or their hips go back down, they deactivate the glutes, and then they start using the hip flexors again. So the key is to keep those hips hovering off the floor. And not trying to push your hips way up, but keep them hovering off the floor and keep those glutes tense, and then try to crunch as high as you possibly can. If you do it that way, you're going to feel it in the right way, and you're going to create the right recruitment pattern that's going to prevent the hip flexors from doing all of your ab exercises for you. All right, guys, so if you like this video as much as I enjoyed making it, make sure you share it with your friends. Also, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and set on your notifications so you can see when we post new videos. We do them all the time. Also, if you have any questions, put them down below in the comments. I will visit periodically to answer those for you. And finally, at the end of this video, we have a free guide that we're giving away to teach people how to alleviate back pain.